Welcome. So today we are going to be talking about a new kind of series using web security tools to identify gaps and weaknesses in our software. Today is going to be an introduction to Arachni Web Application Security Scanner Framework. There's going to be kind of a variety of lessons that I'm going to go over time that are going to be security tool specific. So this is kind of going to be the broader module. So if you go look for them on the site, look for the using web security tools. But each one is going to be kind of a different topic when I do them once a month or every few weeks. So this is going to be the first one. This is just an introduction to Arachni. What we're going to cover today is what Arachni is. We're going to walk through how to set up and use Arachni, and then we're going to see Arachni in action. So I kind of cheated already, and I started this yesterday, and I went ahead and I hit our developer site, I hit Melage Consulting, and I hit your site, Rob, rb-sns.com. And just to kind of highlight some of the potential risks that our sites have. That's pretty much going to be it for the slides. This is going to be a very hands-on presentation. Some of the things you're going to need today, though, just going to drag this out here. So the URLs we're going to be using today, we're going to be using the arachniscanner.com, virtualbox.org, and ubuntu.com. So we're actually going to set up a VirtualBox instance running Ubuntu with Arachni installed, and then we're going to run the Arachni against some of our sites. The cool part is Arachni is so lightweight, you can install this thing onto a little Raspberry Pi and run this as a standalone server, just sitting in your corner somewhere in your house. And you can ping it whenever you need to, just to kind of see what your security risks that your site may be encountering. So the first thing we need to do is we'll need to get VirtualBox. VirtualBox is kind of like VMware. It's a virtual environment where you can build multiple virtual instances of operating systems. I've already downloaded this and installed this, but just to give you a quick rundown, if you go to download, pick your operating system, OS X, which is what I'm running, download VirtualBox. The second thing you need to download off the site, though, is the VirtualBox VM extension pack. This is not required, but if you have things like some graphical issues or some USB devices you want to connect to your laptop and have them be recognized by VirtualBox, you kind of need the extension pack. So I recommend anytime you do a VirtualBox binary or you install a VM on VirtualBox, install the extension packs onto the operating system that you install on your VM. The other thing we need Ubuntu. Or really any Linux flavor will do. I like Ubuntu because it's very quick, lightweight, and I've kind of messed around with it over the years. They were one of the first Linux kernels to actually support mobile and touchscreen. And as we actually start using it today for the presentation, you'll see that it's very mobile-like. It's very tablet touch-friendly. So all you need here is to go to Downloads, and then scroll down and pick your flavor. So where you want Ubuntu Desktop. And the current version that they're supporting through April 2021 is going to be version 16.04.4 LTS. There is an Ubuntu 17.10.1, but it is being sunsetted this year in July. So I would recommend sticking with Ubuntu 16.04. Just go ahead and download. Or if you want to use a torrent, you can download it through the torrent. So once VirtualBox is installed, we open up VirtualBox. You have the VirtualBox Manager. It allows you to kind of select your multiple VirtualBox instances. It's real easy to use. You click New, type in what type of operating system we're using. So Ubuntu, the one I'm installing is the 16.04.4, and this will be for our Arachni demo. The other thing is, so let me jump out here real quick. So if we go to Arachni, before I really talk about the highlights, I want to kind of get this install started, and then I'm going to talk about Arachni. So if we go out here and we look at what's required for Arachni, it's really the base of the smallest instance for most VM. So you only need 2 gigs of RAM to run this. You need 10 gigs of storage. And for now, we're just going to use the out-of-the-box SQLite 3 database that comes with it. But really, they want you to set up a PostgreSQL. I'll talk about the more advanced features of Arachni in a future presentation, but for today, we're just going to use the out-of-the-box setup and just kind of see how it all works. So we need at least 2 gigs, 2048. Create a virtual hard disk now. Create. We're going to do a virtual box disk image. I'm not going to do a fixed size. Fixed size essentially takes up the full 10 gigs of your hard drive immediately. Using the dynamic allocation is nicer because it only uses what you need to use for the instance. So we'll create it. We now have a scaffolding for our VM for Ubuntu, so we can click it. Right now, there's nothing in it. So now you have to actually install the software. So we'll go out here. I don't want the 17. I want 16. Okay. Start. And we'll stick that over here. We'll get that going. Now, while Ubuntu is going, we're pretty much going to use the default settings for the install. So as that pops up, I'll be jumping back and forth over to that. But let's go talk about Arachni. So Arachni is a free, simple, distributed, intelligent, powerful, friendly, high-performance modular monitoring software that will test your site for vulnerabilities, for example, like SQL injections, cross-script injections. So we got Ubuntu. So when you install Ubuntu, you got download. Go ahead and just select these by default. It'll make it easier once it's installed. Continue, erase disk, install. Just take the defaults. We're in Central Time Zones, so Chicago. Keyboard English. Genie. And we're just going to throw in a simple password. If you do this for a production server, please make it more secure. And that's going to take a few minutes to install. All right, so back over here. So Arachni Web Application Security Scanner Framework. It's multi-platform, so it will support Windows, Mac, Linux. It will even do mobile testing, so you can actually test website based on a agent. So you can do an iOS agent, you can do an Android agent, you can do a Windows Phone agent. It's versatile. It covers a great deal of use cases, ranging from simple command line scanner utilities to a globally high-performance creative scanners to a Ruby library allowing you for scripting audits, multi-user, multi-scan. You can create agents that can be deployed to other machines so that they can be running on those machines and send information back to your scanner. It also has a bunch of REST APIs. You can also extend those REST APIs so you can actually have your agents call and send information through other packets. It's also integrated browser environment, so it can highly support complex web applications with JavaScript, HTML5, DOM, and DOM manipulation and AJAX. Real easy to download. You just click the download Arachni framework. We'll do that on the Ubuntu instance once it's installed. What I like about it, they basically put their money where their mouth is. It's free, it's public, it's open source. So if you want to see what they're actually testing and see that it does what it says it does, you can actually go out to Git and go through their code base and look around and see what it's actually doing. Some of the things that you can do checks to identify custom issues. You can create plugins to cleanly extend the system functionality. You can create reporters to store, format, scan results in whatever way suits you. Out of the box, the reporting feature is nice, but it's very limited. So you really want to create your own reporters if you want to do anything custom for your company or your framework. RPC services, if you want to remote control services in your own way, so you can install the agents and remote control them through your interface here. Multiple deployment options. Today, we're primarily going to go over the web UI. There is a distributed system where you can use the remote agents. You can also create custom Ruby libraries so that you could create your own scripts. You can create some additional security scans that aren't included within the Arachni framework. And there's a lot of CLI, command line interface scanner utilities for quick scans. So if you don't want to mess with the web UI, you can use the CLI instead. Or if you're on a remote machine and you want to check a scanner, you can actually call using the CLI commands, using the REST commands to your scanner and actually get a report back remotely. Abundance of security checks. So out of the box, they kind of give you a small little list set here, but let's just go look and see what all it really does support. So they currently are actively checking for SQL injections against all these different database types. So you got Oracle, you got Postgres, MySQL, SQL Server, SQLite, DB2, Firebird, and so forth. So it's a very wide variety of databases that are currently being supported here. You combine SQL injections to different analysis using differential. You can also inject using timing attacks. So MySQL, Postgres, and SQL Server. You can do NoSQL injections to MongoDB. Also do blind NoSQL injections using different analysis, differential, CSRF detection, code injection. This is kind of cool. They also do other things like blind code injections, LDAP injections, path. So a wide variety of different types of injections and checks that you can do through your system. Then you also have some other passive support. So allow HTTP methods, backup files, backup directories. So not only can you scan for certain things, but you can also create backup methods with this as well. Other variety of things in here. And then your different types of reporters, you can do HTML, XML, text, JSON, Marshall, YAML, or AFR. Plugins, you can add external functionality to the system in a modular fashion. So you can create passive proxies, directory attackers. We'll see a few of these because we actually have some common directories that hackers could exploit for some of our websites. Those showed up on some of the scans I ran already. You can actually get metrics, so you can scan different metrics, how long pages load, how long it takes to go back to a system and come back to a server. Those are some of the different types of plugins and agents that you can install. You got some defaults. You can do auto throttling. You can do health maps, meta, and then some other features. Okay, so we need to, there we go. Before I install anything, I want to make sure everything's up to date. So what else do we have? Let's see, integrated browser environments. So I love this part. So Arachni can handle complex modern web applications. So it can handle DOM, JavaScript, HTML5, AJAX. However, there is a slight problem that you could run into trying to run some of the JavaScript scans. And that is when the JavaScript is running in strict mode. So strict mode, which is sloppy mode, which basically means a way to opt in a restricted variable of JavaScript. So it kind of forces something into your code saying, hey, I need this JavaScript library. Make sure it always gets loaded. So that can cause a site, one, to perform the way you want it to, but however, you can actually open up some issues with actually testing your site correctly. So strict kind of bypasses certain features of the browser. So you want to make sure that you're either not using strict mode, or if you are, that you set up your configuration to watch out for that. Intelligent on-the-fly adaptation to each web application. So it's checking for 200 responses. It checks for 404s. It checks for 303s. So it makes sure that your site is displaying the pages like it's supposed to. Arachni analyzes each application resource individually, which in turn allows it to tailor each request to the technology being used. So you can look for HTTP requests, HTTPS. One of the features I did like about this when I ran the scanner, our sites are through our launching internet business, we're all configured to be set up as HTTPS, because we all know Google and all the current browsers are now essentially restricting sites or telling users that their sites are not secure and redirecting people away from your site if you don't use HTTPS. So what's nice about this is, as it scans your site, it will actually show you or identify areas of your site that are still HTTP. Even though everything's configured for HTTPS, it still has some holes in your security where you may still have like an HTTP image link that you're pulling in, which really needs to be HTTPS. Now, the other feature, so jumping back over to VirtualBox for a moment here. So I've got Ubuntu installed, it's updated. However, I need to also add some components for VirtualBox so that things like shared clipboard will work. Some of my, if I want to plug in a USB drive and have it actually be recognized by Ubuntu, you have to install the guest add-ons. So now that I've updated Ubuntu with the latest software updates, we need to run the little disk here. And all it does is it'll install a bunch of drivers for Ubuntu that VirtualBox can then interact with other features. So I just turned on the bidirectional copy and paste. So if I copied something from over here, I could paste it over here. Makes it a lot easier when you're running scripts on multiple VMs. You can have a little notepad over here of commands you want to do, and you can just copy and paste them in. One thing to be careful of when you do this is, like, for example, I'm on Mac over here, so the command button is Command C to copy, but over on Ubuntu, it's the control button, Control C, Control V for copy and paste. All right, so we've now got that installed. Restart so everything takes place. All right, well, that's going on. Go back over here. So Arachni is also mobile ready. So I mentioned this briefly before. So our Arachni uses web user interfaces. It uses FireUp, where you fire up the web UI on a machine with supported OS and start. You can control or monitor scans from your tablet or phone. The other thing you can do, and what's cool about this, is it uses a lot of the features that are also handled by like Selenium or Selenium Grid with the way that they test websites. So what it does is it will create an agent to test your site, but what it does is it sets the viewport size, sets the orientation, and it sets it in such a way for the device that you're using. So if you're using iOS, say iOS 5, you can set to the max resolution for iOS 5. But you could also set to the max resolution, or you could set it to iOS 5, but set the resolution higher and make sure that things still display correctly and things aren't being cut off. Additionally, it's high performance. It's very fast. You have asynchronous HTTP requests for lightweight concurrency and fast communication. Clustered browser environments for parallel JavaScript DOM operation. Support for multi-instance scans, utilizing multiple instance processes for fast audits, even when distributed across multiple nodes. When I started this yesterday, I actually ran 3 scans simultaneously, and they ran pretty succinctly with no real problems. I didn't really see too many errors being reported back and forth as far as the scans actually running. Now, when I tried to stop them this morning, I did unfortunately introduce some errors because I was trying to stop some things out of sequence. But the purpose of this was just to kind of give you a sample, not really give you the full scan. When you do run a full scan, though, don't be surprised if it takes about 24 hours to do the initial scan of your site. It's doing a deep dive. It's really going through everything on your site. Additionally, we get highly detailed, well-structured reports out of the box. They look great. However, you're going to want to customize them to make them look a little more configured, a little more consistent with your company's look and feel. But some of the things you have is you have effective page snapshots, DOM transitions, DOM captures, data flow syncs, execution flow syncs, referring page snapshots. So it gives you links to the pages that have issues, JavaScript stack data, stack traces, function names, and so forth. And then once it actually completes a full scan, you then have the capability of exporting the data out into these report types. At this point, does anyone have any questions on what Arachni is?
I was wondering, just concerning, is it that it's gonna detect areas of your site where a brute force attack will bring it down, or some type of botnet, type thing would bring it down, or is it just the injections? I'm confused on that.
Nope, kind of all the above. You'll see that once I finish the install. I'm going to walk you through actually setting you up so you could actually do this on your own machine to test your own site. But then I'll flip
Nice.
over to one that I've already set up and ran, and we can actually look at some of the reports, some of the issues it found. And I have two particular ones where a strict transport security header was missing, and I had a missing X-frame options. So I'm going to show you how to fix those based on the error that it identified. But yes, it also does the brute force attacks. It identifies places where that could be an issue. It also identified places where bots could be an issue. You'll see that a little bit later, but good question. And you're definitely understanding what it's doing. I wasn't real clear about that yet, but I kind of skimmed over that particular piece of that because I was going to cover that a little bit later.
Gotcha. Okay, good deal.
Moving on. All right, so I now have Ubuntu installed. My VM's running. So if I actually go look over in Virtual Machine Manager, I see it's running here, and we see it displayed here. So I'm going to go ahead and maximize it to half the screen. And then over here, so now that we have Ubuntu set up, we need Arachni. So I will copy this URL from here and go over to Firefox over here. And if the VirtualBox plugins work correctly, I should be able to paste. And it didn't do it right. Okay, well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Go to the Arachni site, go to downloads. Now, Arachni has a Linux install, macOS, and Windows. You can also do it from the command line on Linux using Ruby commands. However, I tried to install it on two different Linux instances. I've got one for 16, and I went ahead and did one for Ubuntu 17. Ruby on Linux is a little tricky. You need to really make sure your environment's set up before you go try to install it from the command line. So before you really get into any of the command line interfaces, if you don't really understand Ruby, I would recommend going and reading up on that a little bit and trying to get Ruby installed through the Ruby setups for Linux and doing some basic little hello world programs to make sure everything's installed correctly. That's a little bit outside the scope of what we're going to talk about today, but I may get into a later lesson where we do more advanced topics with that. But just be warned, yes, you can install it with the Ruby gem command, but potentially it's going to break the first time out. You're going to have to do a little configuration of your environment. All right, so we have Arachni. Let's go ahead and extract this guy here. And what I really like about this software is because it's open source, their documentation is wonderful. So first thing you do is you go in to the Arachni folder and open up your README file. This guide contains a whole slew of information that you're going to need. So to begin with, it gives you the links to the Arachni site, the different blogs and articles that they put out, the Arachni documentation, which if you notice is actually on GitHub. So if we actually go here, copy. So first you can get to the code. So here's all the code. You can actually check it out, compile it yourself, run it. Here's all those links that were in the README file. But what's nice about the wiki is the wiki is constantly getting updated. You can report issues if there's problems. You can click news to see the latest news, install instructions. So here we can do Linux, and they'll walk you through how to set up the install. So download the binaries, or if you want to run it with the build scripts, so you can run Ruby. You'll have to make sure you have libcurl with OpenSSL installed. But that's if you're doing this from the command line interfaces, which is a little more advanced than what we want to look at today. So let's go back over here. There's my README. So the README also has some additional information we need. So the first thing we need to do is we need to launch the web interface. So we need to go to bin and run Arachni web. Well, to run this guy, we really want to run it from a command line. So we'll run it from terminal. And we'll slap terminal. We'll keep that in our launcher. We are in our root, so we need to go to downloads, Arachni, bin, And then here's all the Ruby commands that we can run. So we have our kind of RPC, our monitor, our shell, but we want to run web. So we're going to do Connie web and just give it a second, and boom, it's now running. There's our local host to get to our login. So we'll copy that guy. Don't do Control-C on terminal, kills things. There we go. Okay, localhost. Come back out here. Localhost. And then our port's going to be 9292. And it gives us our sign-in. Nice, user-friendly Ajax interface, Web 2.0. All right, so the other thing we need is our login. So we're going to log in for now as admin. By default, user works, but user is not going to be set up for any scans until you actually set some things up with the administrator. Any individual scans that user set up cannot be shared with other users unless the administrator allows it. Okay, we're now in Arachni. Boom, here's our web interface. So we have documentation, report bugs, but the place where we really want to go is we want to scan a new site. So say we do HTTPS DoctorWhoStuff.com. Default, lets it do cross-site scripting, SQL injection. You can give it a description for reporting purposes. There's other advanced options down here, which we'll cover in a later presentation, but you can do a direct, you can do a remote, or you can set up a grid. I'm probably going to discuss the grid options after I do my Docker container discussions, because I want to actually show you guys how to set up Selenium grids and actually build a grid framework later down the road. You can set it up to share, so you can do share with regular users. Turn advanced options off or not. It's not responding. There we go. All right, so I just kicked off the first scan. It's going to start doing some basic statistics on the site, check out and response time, concurrencies. As you can see here, okay, it's instance is idle, waiting for workload. It's setting up the browser cluster. So far, so good. Here we are, 18 seconds. Finally going. So response time so far are good. 0. Still good. Now, but behind the scenes, if you look, it's actually cranking away. It's doing a lot of different calls and gets to your site. Oh, look, I got a 304 error, 304 error. It looks like it's going to take another minute. Still getting 304, still getting 304 errors. Okay, so it's still doing, got it. All right, so it was still doing just the standard brute force responses. So now it's hit the site. Now I've got a 2-second response time. It's discovered one page. Still cranking through. Here we go. 276 requests performed. So this is also kind of that brute force attack you were talking about, Tim. So it actually sits there and it pounds away at your site to get you concurrency and some other issues. The issues will be listed here. What's cool is over time, so every time you run the scan, it keeps it in history. So if you run it, you have some failures, you go out and fix it, and you rerun your scan, and the failures will now be fixed or verified, or you can then set them up and say, oops, that's a false positive, or you can even set things to be awaiting review. Okay, so it's been 7.75 requests. So you kind of get the idea. This is how you kick it off. You're going to let it run. Like I said, it takes about 24 hours to get a full, complete run. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to stop him because I don't want to take up all my system resources with VMs. And we will shut this guy down. And let's go look at the one that I started up earlier today. As you can see, this one I did with Ubuntu 17.10, just so you can see it works with both versions of Ubuntu. I went back to Ubuntu 16 because for some reason 17, you're going to see this flicker quite a bit, and I apologize. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to go to our Arachni location, which is still in C downloads. Arachni, then need to start the Arachni web. Okay, up and running. And go to localhost. Log in as our admin. And we'll go to scans. So real quick on the dashboard, once you have this running and you have active scans, you're going to have a history here over on the right. So every time you log in, you can see what was actually going on overnight. So I aborted a couple of scans, I shared a scan. So you just kind of have a running activity of what's going on your server. So here we go. Here's our scans. So let's start with the one with the least. So we'll do developer. So like I said, it threw some errors, but that's partially because I killed the scans midstream. But developer, it ended up finding 3 high priority issues, 1 medium, 1 low, and 10 informational. So one of the big ones it found was cross-site request forgeries, where name, password, and role can be passed around. And it kind of gives you the links as to where it found that. So you could then jump out and go look at the actual page. And then it gives you kind of some additional information on what the issue is and how you might want to address it. The other thing, too, is it gives you a link out to the common weakness enumeration site. And out here, this site gives you a list of all known weaknesses. So external mappings, helpful views, software written. So these are like your top 25s, most dangerous software errors. So it's just a list of common errors that have been identified over time, and different things that you really should check your site for. So you have cross-site request forgery. Let's see, what else do we have? We have missing strict transport security header. So the site's set up to be HTTPS, but our header is not passing strict transport security. So that's real easy to fix, especially since I'm pretty sure that developer was built on a WordPress. Missing X-frame option header. Again, user interface attack, so it can help prevent clickjacking. Other things, cookies set for parent domain. If you're using cookies and you are doing HTTPS, you really want to keep your cookies HTTPS as well. If you need them to be HTTP, they may get flagged or they may be able to be exploited. Interesting responses. So the server responded with a non-200 OK, nor 400 not found. So basically, you got some other messages back that were not 200 or 404, but the site still came up. So you had some redirects involved. Could have been a 303, 304, but it eventually got redirected back to a 200. Insecure cookies, some more information on cookies, HTTP only cookies. So those are just some of the things it found. Again, since this was the first run, it's just all issues. So right now, since the report didn't finish, fix, verified, none of these are populated. I can go back and look at my scans again. So we'll look at Melosh Consulting. So these are 2 different scans I ran. So I have 5 medium, 1 low, 4 informational, common directory issue. So cyber criminals will attempt to locate unreferenced directories and hope they will be able to assist in further compromising of a web application. So they basically threw in the common directory names that most cookie cutter websites install, like WordPress, and then they try to walk down the tier and find some vulnerabilities. Common administrative interfaces. So one of the biggest things it doesn't like about WordPress is the WP login. So really, if you want to secure that, one of the easiest way to do it is to rename it to something not common or not login like. So most hackers will have to really hunt and peck your sitemap to find an actual login page. Other responses, again, I got the same 200, 400 on 2 of my pages. Insecure cookies, and email address disclosure. So this one was interesting. I didn't even think about this, but cyber criminals can spider a website and grab the email addresses, and then they can pull other information from your site and try to spoof emails and send out to client lists or people saying that they're you to try and get them to log in as you so they can spoof your pages. So a combination of this, having the common administrative interfaces. So between the two, they could say, hey, your password or your account could be compromised, log into your site, and what they'll do is they'll scrape your site, make their login page look like yours. You log in through their interface, they now have your user ID and password, but they essentially can redirect you to our site, log you in with your username and password, and it looks like you went through our system correctly. So it's just another way that they can hijack you. Let's see, what was the other scan? So hate to pick on you, Rob, but your site had quite a few little vulnerabilities. But again, a lot of it's just WordPress. So cross-site forgery, again, because you have the name, user, password, and roles. It found it on blogs and blogs !s equal. So you must have a couple links somewhere on your site that have the S equal, which I think is the roles. Again, missing strict transport security headers. You're doing HTTPS, but you're not passing the HSTS header. Also, common directory issues like I ran into, missing the X-frame option header, common sensitive files. So sitemap index. Let's see. During the initial recon stages of an attack, cyber criminals will attempt to locate unreferenced files and hope they'll file a system of compromised. Administrative interfaces. So you have a couple different login paths to your site. You might want to just look at changing the redirect or changing the path names to something a little less login like, so that it's a little more hidden from bots or from hackers. Again, insecure cookies, email address, cookies set for parent domain, and then some interesting responses. So you kind of have the same problem every now and then. The site on your blog did not return a 200 or a 404. So let's take a quick look at how to fix 2 of these. So let's start with this one. So the strict transport security header, since most of our sites are WordPress, all you have to do is go into the WordPress root, go to your WordPress includes, modify the functions.php file, and look for this code, but if it's not there, just copy this in and paste it into your functions.php. So we're going to add an action when we send headers, call this method here. The method TGM IO strict transport forces a header, strict transport security, max age, includes subdomains preload. That will fix this error here. And then the other one, which I don't, yeah, you had it right here. Then the other one, the missing X-frames options, for that one, again, you go into WordPress root, go into your includes, you can go to functions PHP, and then you can put this function in there if it doesn't already exist. Or if you want to be even more secure, you can put this line into your htaccess file, and it will force the X-frame options into your headers. So we've looked at what Arachni is. It's essentially a monitoring tool that you can use to look for security holes, weaknesses in your applications. We walked through setting up a VirtualBox instance running Ubuntu and setting up Arachni. And we saw Arachni in action. And we even looked at debugging a couple of the common bugs or common flaws that your website may have. Before I wrap up, do we have any more questions? If there are no other questions, as always, thank you for your time. Send any questions, comments, or requests for assistance to info@developerner.com, or leave us a note on any of the sites where you run across this video or our blogs. Thanks and have a great day.